Recording? Recording, got it, okay. Please, dear God, do not fall over. Okay. All right.
Take one.
Take, whoa. Look at myself anymore. Okay. So I'm Terry, the director of Kids Journey. You guys probably already know that, and I'm here with Ernest and Wendy, who are going to help us talk a little bit about some of our most important policies and procedures in Kids Journey, because they have their feet on the floor. They know how this thing goes. So talk to me first about what do you guys do when kids need to go to the bathroom? How do you handle it?
Usually we just have them take the little boys or girls
Bathroom
cards,
passes?
yeah, bathroom passes, and we just let them go one at a time.
Why one at a time? Why is it an important part of our policy?
Just to make sure that all the kids are remaining safe and that we're keeping track of how many kids are going in and out.
Exactly.
That way they don't get a little crazy in the bathroom, because, typically if there's more than one child in the bathroom, they may tend to have a little bit more fun. And
Yeah, they can have a toilet paper party.
yes,
Yes.
exactly.
But also, too, we need to keep our kids safe. So being in the bathroom one at a time is important. What tip do you tell them to make sure that they're in the bathroom alone?
But we have them put the hanger outside the bathroom on the handle, so that way an adult will know that a child is in the bathroom and wait until they're done.
Exactly, perfect. Yeah, so if we're hanging the thing on the door that says the bathroom's in use, no adult in their right mind should be walking in there, and it helps to keep the kids safe. The other thing that I do, I don't know if you guys do this, but I always tell the kids, bend over and look for feet.
Yeah.
Because if I tell them, don't go in the bathroom if someone's in there, they're always a little confused by that. But if I say, look for feet, only go in if there's no feet, they get that,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't usually explain to them why, I just tell them that's the rule one at a time. So,
Usually they understand that, if we just say that's the rule.
yeah, the kids are accustomed to having bathroom rules in their schools and things too, so I think it's a pretty simple policy. It's an important policy at West Winds, because it's how we make sure that our kids are not using a bathroom with anybody else in it, and keeps them safe along with our security team. So that's our bathroom policy. Hope you understand now why we do that. That's our policy for kindergarten through 5th grade. And for those of you in preschool and toddler, you know you have a different policy, and we'll talk about that on a different video. Okay, so I'm not gonna stop filming, but we'll clip there. That's perfect, okay? That's yeah, you're like a natural. Sit up straight. All your thoughts are like so cohesive and clear and straight. Okay, now I'm gonna talk to you about, I'm gonna remind you that when you guys signed up, our policy says that we don't physically hit, kick, beat, berate, something I can't remember, okay? The physical stuff and the verbal stuff. So we're gonna talk about what do we do instead, okay? All right, so starting now. So you guys know that we have an important policy in Kids Journey that we don't ever physically discipline the kids, which of course includes kicking, hitting, but it also includes we don't restrain them, okay? Unless a child is actually causing harm to someone else, and you must restrain them, but you never choose to restrain them. So I imagine you had times when you wanted to and wondered if you needed to. So how are you handling that? What are you doing when a kid is like really out of control? What are you doing?
Usually we will get their number and call for their parent.
Exactly. I think it's so important for us, like we have to recognize we're not a school where we have to develop that 8-hour a day, 5-day a week rapport with the kid. We don't have that kind of rapport with them. So it's not usually beneficial for us to try to develop discipline routines with them. So we can do things that have to do with classroom management, which we'll have more videos on classroom management. But in terms of when you have an immediate behavior problem, we're remembering that the parents are just 300 feet away.
Yeah.
And so
sometimes I'll try to engage the kids in something else that they're starting to act up, maybe give them a responsibility of passing out something, or just getting them involved in something to get their mind off of what they were doing or how they were reacting.
I think it's always a good idea to make
Try to
an attempt.
diffuse it as much as we can, but if all else fails, we know that we have that number that we can call. I mean, we typically try not to use the number, so that way the parent can stay in and get the full message. But, and you know, last ditch effort, that's all we have left. If the child is not responding, then we at that point will have to call the number, so that way it doesn't disrupt the rest of the class.
So how do you call the number? What do you do?
But usually we would go up to the front desk and say, hey, can you page number
Yes.
215 or whatever the child's number is.
Yep, sticking your head out of the door and looking for somebody at the check-in counter or looking for me to page the number. If you have a helper, you can go directly to the pager yourself. Most people don't do that because they forget where the pager's at, but you can go to the pager yourself. You just enter the number and hit the word enter, and it goes in. That goes up to the sound booth, where they then put it up on the screen. You should know that sometimes things can go wrong with that. Sometimes I've paged numbers and they haven't ended up on the screen. If I know a number is being paged, I always go and make sure it's actually going to show up on the screen. If you page a parent and they're not coming, and you're in a position, I hope you're never in a position where you've got like, it's that bad and no one's around to help you. Hopefully there are people around to help you. That's what should be happening in an ideal situation. But if not, and you're not getting a response, you will need to walk and go see that it's actually on the screen. And if it isn't, if in the event if I wasn't there, you would need to walk up to the sound booth and tell them the number.
Right, when the guys or gals know.
Right. But usually that's never happened so far. So far, me or one of the other service coordinators is usually aware when a parent is needed. But in a worst case scenario, you actually have to walk to the sound booth and give them the number.
And honestly, we never really have kids that's so bad that we've only had to do it one time in 3 years. So
excellent.
You know, that's
right.
We've been able to calm them down and keep them engaged enough where they haven't been so unrivaled.
Right. That's why nobody
crazy.
knows how to put the number in, because it doesn't happen that much.
Yeah.
But you do need to know, what is my rescue plan? You also have the walkie-talkies in your room. You could call security to help you if you have a child if you have a child that's hurting somebody else. I had an incident of this a couple months ago where a child was hurting other kids, and I could not get them out of the room, and I had to call security to help me with it. And I hate when that happens, but you do need to know that you have help if you need help. And our goal is always, look, the end goal is you always want the child to have a really good experience on something.
Absolutely.
Because you're representing God to them. But sometimes, one kid, we just can't manage it sometimes. And there's, if there's 10 other kids in the room, sometimes it's what we need to do. So it's an important part of our policy. It's how we get our parents. It's also how you get a parent if the child is injured, too. So we've had cases of that, children that have a bloody nose or bumped their head. And if a child is injured, if you can see the injury in any way, if you can see a bump or a cut or anything like that, you should call the parent and just say, I just want you to look at this to make sure you're comfortable with it before we go on in class. I always do that so that they don't say, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, exactly.
I just stitched it up myself.
Right.
Hey, we got glue in the art room.
Perfect. Okay, good. That's good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk, what we're talking about, bathroom numbers. Oh, check in, check out. Okay, we're almost done. Checking the numbers when the kids leave the room is what we're going to talk about. Okay. Okay, so you guys know that when the kids come to your classroom, they're going to have their name tag on, and their name tag has a 3-digit number on it. That 3-digit number correlates to the number that the parent has. So when the parents check their child in, they get one tag, and it's the same number for all of their kids. So they're walking around with the tag from room to room to room, picking up their kids. Sometimes they could misplace them. We'll talk about that in a minute. But why don't you guys talk about what is your process when parents are coming? How do you make sure you've got the right kids with the right parents?
For one, we try to welcome them into the actual classroom so they can just kind of see what it's all about and what their kid's been doing for the last hour.
Thank you for bringing that up. I love that.
Yeah.
We don't want them to feel like it's a coat check. Here's your kid.
Yes.
Give me your tag,
I've
here's
actually
your
checked
kid.
in other kids that they brought in with them, and they're like, this child wasn't in your classroom. Like, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Just checking to make sure.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we want them to feel like they're always allowed in the rooms, because parents are always allowed in the rooms. And we want them to feel like something happened in there that was meaningful and valuable. So
Right.
inviting them in is the first step. I'm glad you brought that up and reminded us.
It's also, it doesn't create a bottleneck at the door as well by inviting them in. It helps with the flow of traffic coming in and out.
But if they
really
don't come in,
helps.
we just
Yes.
kind of go to the door and again, make sure that they
Yep.
match up and, you know, that they're not leaving beforehand. There's a couple times you do have to run after them and,
Yep.
you know,
Double
be
check.
like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah,
you
wait
know,
a minute, I
so,
didn't check. Yeah.
you know.
Tell me a little bit about what your attitude is, or the way that you approach parents. If a parent comes to you and they don't have the number, how are you handling it?
That doesn't really happen too often, but generally we just try to ask which one there is, and we, you know, try to make sure that the child knows who wants to pick them up. And usually the child will like, Daddy, Mommy, you know, they'll let you know.
The signs are there that let you know.
They're not going to be going off with a complete stranger because they're excited about showing their artwork or what they made to their parent or guardian.
And you have come to a point too, because you guys have been volunteering long enough, you can match a lot of these kids with their parents.
Yeah.
I still try to use that system though, so the other newer parents don't think that, you know,
handing out kids.
right, we're just, you know, giving.
Yes.
So I still try to do that even though I know.
I think that's exactly the right practice, because I myself have often let children just walk out the door to their parents because I'm standing there with, you know, Kelly Heath and she's on staff and there's her 3 children and I don't look at the number. But I try not to do that if another parent is at all present, because that other parent doesn't know that I am certain those children belong with her and that I'm okay with
They
it.
could
So,
think that could happen to them.
right, it could make them worry. So we want them to see that we have good practices in place. So one thing I would say is also, if you ever have a situation where a parent has lost a number, don't be afraid to say, well, hang on a minute, let me get help. We have a system to sort it out. And then get somebody from check-in or me to help you. And we keep it really lighthearted, because a parent can get really territorial at that moment. Like, what do you mean you're not giving me your kid? And we can't blame them for feeling very territorial.
I like to say, well, we just got to make sure your raffle numbers match up.
Yes, keep it humorous and say, oh, I'm sorry, I know this is awkward, it's our security procedures, we try to keep your kids safe. And I've never had a parent get upset about that, but I do see that they get ill at ease. It's unsettling to them that we're not giving you your child back because you don't have your number. So just try to use a lot of humor in situations like that.
Diffuse.
Now we have ran into the kids will take off their tags and they'll be laying around the room somewhere, and so that has caused an issue sometimes where we're like, hey, where's your tag at?
Yep.
So
Yes.
we have to go around looking for it.
Tommy, come on over. You need your raffle ticket, buddy.
Yeah, and I think trying to keep their tags on is important. I know some kids deliberately take them off. So usually when we had one little one who used to do that, and we would take it off for him and put it up on the door so that we knew ahead of time, you know, this is your number, this is who you're matched with. So apart from that, I want to just say that we need to be aware that when it comes to the wrong person picking up a child, the biggest danger is actually a custody issue. That's where churches most fail to put in place appropriate security procedures. So you should be aware if there are custody issues. If I know of them, I will bring them to your attention. Also, if we know that there's a custody issue, we put in the allergy section, see Terry. And that's my way of letting you know. You've probably never seen it because we don't have any right now, okay? But if we have a situation when we know there's a child whose parent may choose to come to the church and may want to pick them up and is not supposed to do that, then we'll put on the tag, see Terry, and it's my way of telling you, you need to have a conversation with me, but without humiliating the child. The child doesn't need anything.
Too much attention.
Yes, we don't want to draw attention to the child. I have had that happen. I haven't had it happen here at Westwinds yet. I did have it happen at my previous church where we had to be careful about a father who wasn't supposed to pick up the children, and well, they were concerned that he might. Mostly these things never happen. We don't, you know, the vast majority of our experiences on Sunday morning are natural, organic, and they feel good, but you are the first line of security for the kids. It's your job to make sure that they're safely put back into the hands of their parents. Also, if you're wondering and you need to match up a parent and child. They're not together, like you don't know the name of the parents. So for example, let's say you have a situation where a child is just a little weepy and you don't really want to put a number up, and you kind of wonder who brought them, and you want to talk about it, and you can ask check-in to tell you who checked them in. So you have a name, and they can give you the name of the adult who checked them in. And sometimes I've even done things where I've sent our teen helpers in and said, hey, go look for so-and-so, ask him if he cares, if we don't have a diaper, does he care if we use a different one, And we've done things like that instead of putting numbers on screen. Usually, it's best just to put the number up because that's the least disruptive, but if you know the parents, it's an easy question, it's okay to find that information, and you have access to it.
Yeah.
The check-in team can tell you, okay? Feel good?
Yeah. Good.
All right, we're done.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'll edit those. We're gonna run with them whether I like them or not. Now I'm gonna look at myself. You guys are so good at this.
Oh, thanks.
That was so organic too, because we covered exactly what had to be covered. Things that I didn't even remember to cover that you brought up, which was really great.